Welcome into Celtics Today. Chase Sr. with Chat Sports here with you. Hope you all had a good weekend watching your Celtics go 2-0. A lot to get to on today's show, but first, are you subscribed to the channel? If not, you have to be. Why? We're bringing you the latest news and rumors. We have multiple Celtics videos coming out every week, and I want you to help me out. We're closing in on 5,000 subscribers, so hit that big red button down below, go to youtube.com/CelticsTV, and join the family. You're watching Boston Celtics Today here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Let's get into the latest news and rumors around your Boston Celtics, and we begin with DeMarcus Cousins. Could Boogie be going to Boston? Possibly. According to reports, the Celtics are interested in Cousins, who is a free agent right now. He hasn't played since February 17th. He was released by the Houston Rockets. He is currently a free agent, and there have been some suitors in DeMarcus Cousins across the NBA. The reason the Celtics are interested, they didn't make any moves to address their front court issues at the NBA trade deadline, and they missed out on guys in the buyout market like Andre Drummond. Now, I have to warn you, DeMarcus Cousins is not today what he once was in his prime. But when he was in his prime, we're talking about one of the best centers in the history of the NBA, especially when it comes to scoring the basketball. Check out these numbers from 2010 to 2018. Boogie was going off in Sacramento and for a short time in New Orleans. 21.5 points per game, 11 rebounds. And he was contributing defensively in an underrated way with steals and blocks. But it's really unfortunate what has happened to Boogie because injuries have really zapped him of his athleticism, and it's ruined what was going to be one of the best careers for a center that we've seen in modern history. It all started in January 2018 after he got traded to the Pelicans. He tore his left Achilles. Then in April 2019, tore his left quad. Later that year in August, tore his left ACL. And then in 2019-20 last season, he didn't play at all because that ACL injury happened in the offseason. All of those injuries occurring on his left leg. Not good at all, and he is not the same player, as evidenced by what he did in a short sample size with the Houston Rockets this year in 25 games. Now, the minutes weren't what they were in Sacramento and in New Orleans. He wasn't getting as much playing time. That's because as an athlete, he's just not the same dude. 9.5 points, 7.5 rebounds. What really concerns me with Cousins' numbers this year, that field goal percentage, not from beyond the arc, that's from the floor, shooting at a less than 38% clip. As a big man, that's unacceptable. So if you're the Celtics, this would be a reserve player coming in off the bench to maybe spell Robert Williams. He can stretch the floor a little bit, but Boogie is not going to be prime Boogie. Given all of that, what would you do if you're Danny Ainge? Should the Celtics sign DeMarcus Cousins? If yes, I want you to type Y in the comment section. If not, type N. Today's show brought to you by our sportsbook partners at BetUS. Elite Eight games going on tonight and tomorrow. The Final Four coming up next weekend. If you want to bet on the Celtics game against the Pelicans tonight, if you're watching this on Monday, you can do so. Head to chatsports.com/bet. Once you're there, enter the promo code CHAT125 and you get a 125% deposit bonus. There is not a better deal out there. So once again, chatsports.com/bet. And when you're there, enter the promo code CHAT125 and you get a 125% deposit bonus. I did that. Had a good weekend wagering on some of the games in the NCAA tournament. You can do that as well. We continue on with some of the latest news with the Boston Celtics. The NBA trade deadline came and went. They brought in Evan Fournier. They brought in Mo Wagner. They also missed out on some players during the NBA trade deadline and on the buyout market. That includes Andre Drummond. That also includes Nikola Vucevic, who, according to reports, the Celtics were a finalist for, and another Orlando Magic star player who was on the trading block as well, Aaron Gordon. And according to reports, the Celtics at 23 and 23 were looking for upgrades on that roster. They offered a trade package for Aaron Gordon as well. Let's get into some of these players specifically, though. And I want to start off with Andre Drummond. So news broke yesterday, according to Drummond's agent, that once Drummond cleared waivers, that paved the way for him to sign a deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. And the Celtics were in on the former Cleveland Cavaliers big man, who's one of the best all-around post players in the league right now. The Celtics seriously considered bringing in Drummond. Why were they interested? Because this is a guy who can rebound the basketball at an elite rate. And while defensively he's not going to get out to the perimeter, he can really control the paint. So the Celtics were in on Drummond, but they're looking at guys like DeMarcus Cousins now because they missed out on Drummond's services after they did meet with him. And Drummond considered the Celtics to be one of the favorites for him to hop on board with from here on out until the end of the regular season. Another player that the Celtics voiced interest in, and these rumors were hot for a long time, Nikola Vucevic. He ended up being traded to the Chicago Bulls, and probably the most noteworthy trade on NBA trade deadline day. And the Celtics, according to the Boston Globe, were a finalist for one of the best big men in the league. And the Celtics offered multiple first-round picks, but for the Bulls brass, that trade with the Magic couldn't turn that down, and it was a pretty hefty package. A first-round pick, Wendell Carter, Otto Porter Jr., and for Vooch, man, what an addition he would have been for the Celtics lineup, averaging 24.5 points per game this year with a little less than 12 rebounds, but he gets dealt to the Bulls. Another player that the Celtics were kind of engaged with and checking in on, Aaron Gordon. Once again, according to the Boston Globe, the Celtics offered a first-round pick and a young player for Gordon. Not sure which young player it was, but the Celtics were prepared to add to that package, but Orlando ended up pulling the trigger and dealing him to Denver instead. And in his debut over the weekend, Aaron Gordon played really well under Mike Malone. So that's a recap of some of the players that the Boston Celtics were checking in on. And instead, they went to those secondary options like Mo Wagner and Evan Fournier. So given that, how are you feeling about what Danny Ainge and the Celtics front office did? What's your level of satisfaction with their front office? I want you to get into the comments. I want you to grade this one for me. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. For me, I'm going to go C because I thought the Celtics needed major upgrades, and they went with minor upgrades instead. So the Celtics are 2-0 since that NBA trade deadline, and they've played well in those two games since the deadline passed, picking up a win against the Milwaukee Bucks and then another win against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the starting lineup was something that I wanted to look out for to see who they would put in at the center spot. Once Evan Fournier joins this team, which he has not yet, where would he slide into the starting lineup, or is he going to come in off the bench? Now, this was the Celtics starting lineup against the Bucks. Kemba Walker played the point, Marcus Smart at the 2, Jaylen Brown at the 3, Jason Tatum played the 4, with Robert Williams at the 5. You fast forward to the Celtics starting lineup under Brad Stevens against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it looked very similar to this one. Kemba Walker got some rest, but the player that I'm focusing in on here is Robert Williams. So that's back-to-back starts for Robert Williams. He wasn't getting starts when Daniel Tice was on the team, but the Celtics traded him to the Bulls for luxury tax reasons, which has opened up an opportunity for Robert Williams. And at times this year, as a reserve mostly, he has flashed. Now he's getting some starts, and he is impressing. So, as I mentioned, the trade of Daniel Tice has opened up an interesting discussion. Is Robert Williams going to be given the starting opportunity? This is a bouncy big who gives Boston an athletic presence on pick and rolls when he's dashing to the basket. I'm not sure there's a better center in the league who can rise up and throw down a dunk. That's why I find all of this so intriguing. Plus, I know Celtics fans were very excited about the prospects of him growing with this team since getting drafted last year out of Texas A&M. And here's a snippet of the potential that Robert Williams III has. These last two games in which he got starts, 26.5 minutes, 8 points per game, 11.5 rebounds. But what I'm looking at here, the blocks per game, people. Robert Williams is giving the Celtics a defensive presence, an athletic presence at the center position that they did not have under Daniel Tice. Tice, he was more of a high-effort player, lacked a lot of athleticism. Robert Williams doesn't lack any athleticism at all. He's a high flyer. He's bouncy. He has pogo sticks as legs. He can really rise up, and he's giving this team a little bit of an energetic edge, both offensively and defensively. And I think from here on out until the end of the regular season, Robert Williams III has a wonderful opportunity to prove himself for the future of his NBA career. So, I say all of that, and I want to pose this question for you Celtics fans. Robert Williams as a full-time starter, what do you think? If you think that Brad Stevens should put him into the starting lineup from here on out, type 1. If not, type 2 for no. So I love talking hoops. I love talking basketball with everybody. And if you've never seen me here on the channel, this is my debut on the Celtics channel. Give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior. A lot of people hopped into my DMs. They were sending me trade ideas. Now, since the trade deadline has passed, maybe hit me up with some Celtics questions, and I'll answer them all at Chase_Senior. Give me a follow, and I look forward to hearing from you.